kindly be seated. As I mentioned last night at the beginning of Tisha B'Av, the Masorah we have from Ramosha Feinstein is that the only simcha, the only happiness we have, the only thing that we have is Torah. Without the Beis HaMikdash, the only thing we have is Torah. And therefore, it is appropriate that even though we cannot learn Torah today, that we hear divrei chizuk from those who are at the forefront of bringing Torah to our community. There is no denying, no one can deny that the Kol Merkaz Torah in our community has brought tremendous amount of growth in all ways, in all different aspects of our community. And of course we have to thank the Chavrei HaKollel, who many of us in Anshe Emes know very well and become beloved to the community. Of course, at the head of the Kollel is Rabbi Gradon. Rabbi Gradon, as we all know, was beloved even before he started the Kollel Merkaz Torah. But certainly now, with the explosion of Torah in our community, we have a tremendous amount of hakaras hatov and gratitude to Rabbi Gradon. Therefore, it's very appropriate. I think this is the second or third year that we have the honor to have Rabbi Gradon speak to us at this time, especially at this time when it's very difficult. We're not allowed to learn Torah, but it is appropriate that we hear words from someone who brings so much Torah to our community. It's our kavod to have Rabbi Gradon address us.
The Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Tzadik Vav Amud Aleph, tells us something that seemed to be totally tangential to the inyanim of Churban Beis HaMikdash, of the destruction of the temple. And in fact, it's not. The Gemara tells the following story. You may know that from Tanakh that Chizkiah, the great king Chizkiah, was extremely sick, and he was basically destined to die. The reason he was sick, Yeshaya Navi told him, was because he didn't want to have children. The reason he didn't want to have children is because he saw in Nevuah that he would have a son called Menashe, and the Menashe would bring a tremendous level of Chil Hashem and Avodah Zarah to the world. Didn't want to produce that son. And Yeshaya told him that was none of his business. That he needs to be Mekayim the mitzvah, to fulfill the mitzvah of Purim. So Chizkiah was well known as a king, was well known he was sick, and he had a miraculous refuah. So what happened was, the king of Bavel wanted to send him a letter in honor of his refuah. One king to another king is going to send him a letter in honor of his good health. So the following occurred. Kosfele. So they had a scribe write the following words: Shalmu l'malch Chizkiah, peace be to the king Chizkiah. Shalom lekatad Yerushalayim, peace be to the holy city of Jerusalem. Shalom lelokor Rabba, and shalom to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the great God. Nebuchadnezzar Safrei de Baladon Have. The king of that nation was Baladon, and he had an official scribe, and the official scribe was Nebuchadnezzar. But at that moment, Nebuchadnezzar wasn't at his desk. So when they came to write this, letter, it wasn't written by Nebuchadnezzar. Ki also, when he came, he met the secretary who'd written the letter. He said to him, "Tell me, what did you write?" So he said to him, told him what he wrote. So Nebuchadnezzar said to him, "What are you talking about? Karisu ele korabo, you're calling him the great God. First you introduce yourself to send greetings to Chizkiah, then you send greetings to Jerusalem, and then to God? What's the matter with you? This is what you have to write. Shalom elokar Rabbo. You have to send greetings kaviyachol to the Rabbi Shalom. Shalom lekata Yerushalayim, to the holy city of Jerusalem. Shalom lemalka Chizkiah." So what tells a Mavaldika thing? The one person had already left with the first letter. So Nebuchadnezzar ran after the first shaliach to retrieve that letter, to replace it. And he ran 4 steps. Came the Malach Gabriel and stopped him from running any further. As Chazal say, Rabbi Yochanan, there was so much schar that Nebuchadnezzar got for this step of Kiddush Hashem. Nebuchadnezzar was an atheist, maybe he was, who knows what he was, but in his personal life. But he understood that if you're writing a letter, the Rebbeinu Shem comes first. And he was prepared to make an effort to run after the first Shiach to rewrite the letter and to replace it. So that was a message of Kvod Shemayim. He did that thing in honor of Hashem. Because he did it in honor of Hashem, it was a public Kiddush Hashem, he was creating a huge bank of reward. So along came the Malach and Hashemayim, and the Malach prevented him from running further, because if he'd got any more strength, he would have destroyed Klal Yisrael. How did he destroy Klal Yisrael? So the Vilna Gaon says, because of the steps that he took to run after the Shliach, Kadosh Baruch Hu said, "Ani emalei kol mishalos libo," fulfill the deepest desires of his heart. And the deepest desire of Nebuchadnezzar's heart was to destroy Jews. It's a whole weird picture. Here's a man formally writing a letter. It's got to be written correctly in order to honor Hashem, but his deepest desire is to destroy Klal Yisrael. Anyway, that's the subject of a different shir. That's what he's doing. So the Malach prevented him going any further. So the whole destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, which was this Galgal Alidei Nebuchadnezzar, came through Nebuchadnezzar, was a payoff for having done something to cover Hashem. It's very enigmatic, but I'm telling you that for a reason. The Gemara in the next Amud says the following. The Gemara says like this. Where do we see that an Eved was Machabed Adonov? Where do we see an example in Tanakh where a servant was so carefully honored his master? So the Gemara quotes the following verse. It's a verse in Yirmiyahu. Uba Chodesh HaChamishi, in the 5th month, Ba'asar Chodesh, the 10th day of the month, today, Hishnas Chayzer Shalom Melech Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel, Bo Nebuzaradan Rav Tabachim Omad Lifnei Melech Bavel B'Yerushalayim. It was on this day that Nebuzaradan, the chief executioner of Nebuchadnezzar, came and presented himself and stood in front of his master in Jerusalem. Vayisroi v'espeis Hashem v'espeis HaMelech. And he went and he destroyed through fire the house of the Rabbi Shalom and Klal Yisrael. So the Gemara asks a technical question. Umisalig Nebuchadnezzar Yerushalayim. So you're telling me Nebuzaradan, the executioner, stood in Yerushalayim in the presence of Nebuchadnezzar. That's what the verse says. But we have a conflicting verse that says that Nebuchadnezzar person never went to Yerushalayim. Because it says, V'oksev in Malachim Beis, Vayalu Oisei El Melech Bavel Rivlasa. When they needed to communicate with the king of Bavel, then they went to Rivla. And Rivla was outside Eretz Yisrael. So you have a contradiction. Where was he? He was in Yerushalayim or he was in Rivla? So the Gemara is Boruch that he was in Rivla. He never came to Yerushalayim. He never came to Yerushalayim because he wasn't foolish. He was scared stiff. With all that he destroyed, with all that he made charev, he was scared. That's why he said he was a Gradon. But Nebuchadnezzar was a terrifying person. He was a person, he was a cripple, he was very tiny, he was revolting, he was lived away from people. The Gemara says on Shabbos, for the 40 years that he was a king, nobody smiled. Because anybody smiled, he sent the KGB right over, what are you smiling, what's making you so happy? And since he didn't like people smiling, nobody smiled. 40 years a person was much such a in the world, but he didn't come to Yerushalayim. But Nebuchadnezzar came to Yerushalayim. So he came to Yerushalayim, and what happened then? For Nebuchadnezzar, for Nebuchadnezzar, the executioner, it's viewed as if he was standing in the presence of Nebuchadnezzar, but he wasn't. So the Gemara explains this in two ways. Rav Chizda v'Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. They want to resolve this conflict, this contradiction in the Psukim. Chad Omar Dmus Tiyuknoi Hoyser Chakukolo Al Kavtele. The first one says Nebuchadnezzar had an image of Nebuchadnezzar engraved on his chariot. So wherever he went, he was standing in front of Nebuchadnezzar. And since he was a terrifying person, he would see this image, he would be scared stiff. That's the first Mount Omer. The second Mount Omer says, Eimo Yeseira Hoysal Vimenu. He had such an excessive fear of Nebuchadnezzar, Doime Kimisha Omed Lefonav, as if he was standing in his presence. That means, even though he physically was distant from Nebuchadnezzar, he was accountable to Nebuchadnezzar, and he felt that so powerfully that he was trembling in his boots in Yerushalayim as if he was standing right in the presence of Nebuchadnezzar, and therefore the pasuk allowed itself to write that he was standing in front of Nebuchadnezzar in Yerushalayim. So I heard from my Rabbi Shlita, what's the pshat in the Gemara? What's the Gemara mean to say? I want to say a very simple thing. We know that every punishment that comes to the world, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu relates to the world is always midah keneged midah. It's a reflection of the sin has to be experienced in the punishment, has to be visible in the punishment. This was the destruction of the first temple. The first temple, Nebuch, Chazal tell us the Jews practiced Gilei Haroyes, Avodah Zarah, V'Shvichas Dam. They practiced idol worship, immorality, murder. See in a second perhaps exactly what to say about that. There were cardinal sins, major sins. So a person's about to do Avodah Zarah. Some say to hey Moshe, what are you going to tell God when you're doing Avodah Zarah? One day you're going to be accountable. And you have to meet the Rabbi Shalom. What are you going to tell him? You did Avodah Zarah. So next guy is doing Shvichas Dam. You're murdering somebody. What are you doing? There's a Rabbi Shalom in the world. So it was in Shulchan Aruch it says, you can't turn the first page of Shulchan Aruch without saying it's the obligation of every Jew, Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid. Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi, a Jew is required to live with the image of Hashem in front of his eyes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that a Jew has to live with the image of him in front of her eyes, means it's possible to do so. You don't need a graven image, you don't need an idol. It's possible to have the image of the Rebbeinu Shalom in front of you just through Yirah Shamayim. It's possible to do that. So why did Klal Yisrael not do that? It's hard. We don't relate. It's not the way we think. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought the Churban Beis HaMikdash. He taught them what it means, Shivisi. He sent a man who lived Shivisi Nebuchadnezzar Lenegdi Tamid. That wherever he goes, he's shaking in his boots, he's accountable to Nebuchadnezzar. It's interesting, if you'll read the history of the Second World War, you'll see the people who were responsible to Hitler exactly the same feeling. The German officers responsible to Hitler, wherever they were, they trembled. Always a fear, such a lunatic, a person with no boundaries, a person controlling everything. Was able to evoke a massive fear in people. That's a negative fear, that's a controlling fear, that's a churban. But the musig, the concept that exists in the world, that a person can function without having to have a Kodesh Baruch Hu in front of his eyes, but you can create a Kodesh Baruch Hu in front of your eyes. And that's the barrier that's required in order for a person to be able to serve Hashem, that you lost, that you don't understand. I'll send you a shliach, I'll show you very nicely how to do it. He'll do an execution, standing in the Beis HaMikdash in 2 days of 940,000 people. It was Gradon killed 940,000 people in the Azor of the Beis HaMikdash to try to stop the blood of Zechariah, the murdered prophet, from bubbling. Blood was bubbling, wouldn't stop. He said he'll make it stop. He slaughtered 94 units of 10,000 people. 940,000 people in a couple of days. Just mind-boggling. And all how? Because of the fear that he had for Nebuchadnezzar. You see in this Gemara, though, a very interesting dichotomy. Phenomenal thing. That we saw that on the one hand, Nebuchadnezzar wants to destroy Klal Yisrael. On the other hand, he wants to write the letter properly. Now you could explain, he's like a German. The Germans want to do everything in order. It doesn't mean anything, it's just the nature. He wants to do it in order. But at the same time, Nebuchadnezzar is careful after he issues the decree and ensures that it will be fulfilled. He issues a decree that all Jews should be slaughtered and murdered and the Beis HaMikdash destroyed. He carefully avoids coming to Yerushalayim. So he's living in a world of steers. He's living in a world of complete contradiction. He has a certain fear of the Rabbi Shalom, but he's a powerful individual with a personal ratzon. He was a Russian. Nebuchadnezzar was a Russian. He wasn't the person who made a mistake. He wasn't the person who was confused. He was a Russian. The Gemara in Shabbos says that when he died and his neshama came to Gehinnom, the Rishonim in Gehinnom were frightened. That's how dangerous he was. So we should look a little bit for a few minutes at our own dichotomy. Listen to how the Vilna Gaon describes Klal Yisrael. This is a most amazing parsha in Shir Hashirim, and it's an insight into the depth of what Klal Yisrael is. The pasuk is in the 5th chapter of Shir Hashirim. It's the 7th and 8th pasuk. Psukim, according to the guy who interpreted their vision for Churban Beis HaMikdash. So the pasuk says like this: the Divrei Knesset Yisrael Kashim Odi al Eze Inim Me'achurban Yimitz Eretz B'Yosef. Klal Yisrael is speaking out through the words of Shlomo Melech what they're going to regret about Churban Beis HaMikdash, about distance from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So they say the following: Hikuni, they're telling the Malach, don't tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, tell our beloved one that we, the Jewish people, recognize Hikuni. We've been hit. The Goyim have hit us. I'll come back in a second. Hikuni is self-explanatory. Goyim know how to hit. Patsuni, they've given me wounds. Goyim know how to inflict wounds. It doesn't need an explanation. Nasu esredidi mi'olai shomrei achoymes. They removed the crown from my head. The people are guarding the wall. So what does this mean? Says the Vilna Gaon, Hikuni, Kamash Chazal Nasan Einov B'Mikdash Rishon V'Harag Talmidei Chachamim Shelo. Part of the Churban of Beis HaMikdash was a deliberate murder of all the Talmidei Chachamim. Nasan Mikdash Sheni V'Harag Talmidei Chachamim Shelo. When it came to the time of Mikdash Sheni again, there was a specific hurrah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the heavens to destroy Talmidei Chachamim. Listen carefully. Klal Yisrael, when they say Hikuni, Hikuni means they hit me. Everyone understands what it means. You're talking to the Rabbi Shalom. We've been hit because we are children. No, that's not what they mean. When Klal Yisrael talks from the depth of its neshama, Hikuni means we lost Talmidei Chachamim. I was hit, we'll get over there. We'll survive that. So I was hit, probably deserved it. But they took away the Talmidei Chachamim. Where's the Churban for Klal Yisrael? Klal Yisrael recognizes the Churban lies without Talmidei Chachamim we don't exist. So we're telling Rabbi Shalom, ask us how do we feel and how do we respond? They took away Talmidei Chachamim. What's Petzuuni? Hiko vehichri Eretz Yisrael. V'nase Petzoim Eretz Yisrael b'kama yoris. And the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, was destroyed. The pasuk translated by the human being talking about himself. Hikuni u'betzuni makes perfect sense. I was hit, I was wounded, I was battered, I was thrown, I was abused. That's not what Klal Yisrael tells the Rabbi when they talk to him. When Klal Yisrael talks to the Rabbi Yisrael tells the Rabbi Yisrael where our spiritual pain is. They destroyed the Talmidei Chachamim and they took away Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, destroyed Eretz Yisrael. Next thing is talk about Beis HaMikdash. Hishbati eschem b'nois Yerushalayim. So Klal Yisrael says, we are making you swear, you b'nos Yerushalayim, the daughters of Jerusalem. Who are the daughters of Jerusalem? So those are Yud Beis Malachim Hasovim Yerushalayim Shelamar. These are 12 angels whose designated job is to travel around, watch over and travel around Yerushalayim. So there are 12 special angels whose job is oversee Yerushalayim, protect Yerushalayim, and Klal Yisrael is talking to them after the Churban. And they tell him, Im timtzu es doidi, if you'll ever get an audience by the Rabbi Shalom, what are you going to tell? We're talking to you. We want you to give a message to the Rabbi Shalom. So, what is it you're going to tell him on our behalf? So if you see him, Rak, tell him, Shechoilas ahava oni. That we are lovesick. Klal Yisrael is lovesick. Shezei kosheli yosem mikulam. This is the hardest burden to bear. Mashu nifrad b'meni, what the Rebbeinu Shalom has separated himself from us. These are the words of the Vilna Gaon. Klal Yisrael goes through the destruction of the Holocaust. Klal Yisrael doesn't mean there's no individual called Klal Yisrael. Is the neshama, is the essence of Klal Yisrael. So when Shlomo Melech is writing a sefer from the Vilna Gaon, it explains what the neshama feels. The person has gone through the most unbelievable persecution, inconceivable persecution. I remember a friend of mine telling me his father was his father's still alive. His father was a chaplain, I think in the British Army in the Second World War. So they came into concentration camp or work camp, whatever it was. And as you know, the situation was very dire, and people, when they saw the American and British enter, they had food, and they had this, and they were giving out, so people jumped on them, many people died simply from overeating. Just the pressure, they were unable to digest the food. But he remembers, this chaplain remembers, there was one little lying on the floor, probably couldn't move, a little blanket on himself. Blanket means a stick of this piece of paper, is lying on the floor. So they go to him and say, what can we do for you? How can we help you? And obviously help him. Man weighs 65 pounds, there's nothing much, he needs plenty of help. So how can we help you? So the man says, do me a favor, give me a Gemara. 6 years I haven't seen a Gemara. Give me a Gemara, give me a Talmud that I can look into. So, it's an inexplicable thing. It's an inexplicable thing. The person lost everything. He lost his parents, he lost his wife, he lost his children, he lost his brothers, he lost his sisters, he lost his village, he lost his rabbi, he lost his shtot, he lost his shaykhit, he lost his money, he got nothing. He's put on the clothes. What does he want in the Gemara? What's going to happen in the Gemara? Because Shlomo Melech said, Ki choyla zava. Because the person is choyla zava, because that's what I want. It's not going to make any difference. I've already learned now the hard way. Everything else doesn't make any difference. There's one thing a person has to cherish, and that's the neshama. There's an old story written by one of the Rishonim that a person was traveling, and he was on a boat, and the boat sank. I don't know exactly the story, the details. It's a written up story. And he lost his family, he lost everything, and he said to the Rabbi, you already took away my family, took my children, took everything else. But one thing you can't take away is you can't take away my love for you. Now, we don't understand that, because what doesn't mean he doesn't love you. I mean, make up your mind. If he took it all away, so apparently he doesn't love you. So life is more complicated than that. It's not so simple. But there's a point that we need to understand from all of this. This is lofty talk. This is talk that's above us. We struggle. Let me tell you what is critical, what's important. There's a Gemara in Masechta Shabbos that the Gemara says that Klal Yisrael was guilty of a sin when Yoshua ben Nun, Joshua, passed away. Klal Yisrael was guilty of a sin. They didn't eulogize him, Maspedim Karoi. They didn't eulogize him properly. That's what the Gemara says. V'izkor shalei mahar, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu was thinking of picking up the mountain and dropping on them and destroying them for the chutzpah of not being maspid Yoshua ben Nun Karoi. So, what do you mean they weren't maspid? Yoshua ben Nun was the successor of Moshe Rabbeinu. He captured Eretz Yisrael for them, he distributed Eretz Yisrael, he divided it out for them. What exactly did they get wrong about Yoshua ben Nun? What did they think? What was there not to be maspid? A 6-year-old kid could have been maspid in Karoi. What does it mean there was Atzel Vespeda? So there are two explanations of this. But the one I'm quoting today is a Medrash in Rus Rabbah, where the Medrash asked this question. And the Medrash says to them, Medrash says they were misatzel Vespeda shel Chacham. They were lazy, they weren't able to do this hesped properly. Why? Because Hoysa Haaretz Chaviva Em B'Yoser. Because they just entered Eretz Yisrael, and they were too attached to the land. Because they were too excited by the newfound wealth, by the newfound land, by the future that it promised to them. And even though these were holy people, these are people who'd be with Moshe and Aaron in the desert, they just entered Eretz Yisrael, they saw multitudes, listen, they looked a lot better and healthier than you and I. But when it came to the hesped of Yoshua ben Nun, and there wasn't the passion that was required, and the sense of desolation by his passing wasn't there, because after all said and done, part of them was connected to the Aretz. Not the Kedusha's Aretz, the Aretz of the Aretz, the land. So the pshat is that a person is only able to experience spiritual things. There was nothing that people didn't understand about Yeshua. They understood his greatness. They understood his sacrifice. They understood the life that he led. They understood the capacity he learned. That he was zocheh to be the successor of Moshe Rabbeinu Shalom Mash. He never ever moved away from it for years and years and years. He gave everything in the world for Torah. Nobody misunderstood that. But when they said the hesped, a couple of guys looked at their clock. Said, okay, time to feed the cows. That was maybe the sprinklers haven't gone on yet for the right? They didn't disagree with anything he said. There was nothing to disagree with. That's called misatzel vespeda shel Chacham. You don't get it. You don't understand. The whole world just collapsed, and you're trying to find out when to feed the cows. So, we have a problem. We have a Tisha B'Av, and Tisha B'Av is a day where we know until, I don't know whether it was 60 years ago, 80 years ago, 100 years ago, basically any Orthodox shul you went into the world, people sat on the floor and cried. And today people look at the watch. It's a fact. Nobody's crying. Everyone's, it's a day like any other day, but just a day like this, so we do it. We're from a Yidden, we do it. And we have all sorts of, I don't mean entertainments to be negative facetious, but also things, videos and this. What happened 100 years ago before they had a video? What do people do all day long? It's all distractions. It's because we're not able to connect. So why aren't we able to connect? So there's a variety of reasons. The most serious reason we're not able to connect is because we've lost our appreciation for what is significantly spiritual. We're all spiritual people, and we all do mitzvahs, and we all love Torah, but we're bound up in so many other things. Maybe involuntarily, but we're bound up in so many other things that we're completely unable to sense a spiritual loss. You have the passing of a man in the caliber of Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef would have been called a great man 500 years ago. A person who knew the Torah that he knew and learned with the Hasmar that he learned hundreds of years ago. When he was battling with the Rukavega and the Chasam Sofer, he would also have been against Talmid Chacham. In this generation, he so surpassed the generation, nobody can even explain what it is, because the depth of his connection, his learning, and his Asmada and his Yerushalayim, we don't have the words which describe it. It just rings false and silence. We can't connect. We don't connect over there. But you have the passing of a man of the caliber of Yosef. It goes past. It's past. Okay. Somebody pointed out, as a Talmud Chacham here listening for it, so pointed out, he says that 30 tzaddikim passed away this year. Certainly many. Scheinberg passed away. There's a whole list of unbelievable people. People who knew the whole of the Shulchan Aruch the way you know Ashri. No, much better than you know Ashri. You know Ashri, can't translate it. They can know the Shulchan Aruch, they understand it. And for us, it's just, it goes past. It keeps going past. Everything slips away, it goes past. So the secret for that lies in the fact that the Oretz is Chaviva Oleinu Yosef. That's because after all said and done, we live in a country, we live in a culture, we live in a climate where what's going on around us is important. We're connected to it. And we're not going to change that so quickly. We didn't make that up. It's not that we got out of bed trying to do that. It's just the way it is. That's where we live. That's what we're surrounded by. But that's why we need to understand how we need to mechazik ourselves in ruchnius. And the right way to mechazik yourself in ruchnius, strengthen yourself in spirituality, at a simple level, I'm not talking about massive overtones, is that the time that we dedicate to learning and to davening should be complete. If we at least put the phone away, everything that distracts us, anything that can call a person, beep a person, ring a person, text a person, email a person, fax a person, tweet a person, I don't know, I have verbs left to how many times a person can be distracted in the course of 10 seconds. If all of this goes away, when a person walks into Beis HaKnesses, he's going to daven, doesn't matter what goes on in the whole world, he's going to daven. You know, every time the door opens, generally Mashiach doesn't come in the door. I have to study who's coming in. Generally it's not Mashiach. The Mashiach will probably let you know before he comes in. Somebody sneezes, doesn't matter, somebody sneezes. We have to check out who it was, where. Somebody talks, you turn up. Where are we? To train ourselves that spiritual activities are real. When you go to a shir and the Rav or the Rebbitzin is giving a shir, so you give your full attention to the shir. Full attention. Don't be distracted in any way whatsoever. So that at least the impact of the Torah, whilst the Torah is being taught, can have an impact. Otherwise, we're even driving it out before it comes in. Forget about what we are outside the Torah. We're driving it away before it comes in. If you understand, that's really the omek of the pshat in Tosfos and the Masechta Brachos. There's a big question, a lachic question. Today we just, when we do a mitzvah, like a sukkah, and we leave the sukkah, when we come back, we make another bracha. But when we learn Torah, we make a bracha in the morning for Birchas Torah, we go to work, and we come back, and we don't make another bracha. Why not? The answer is this, the real answer. The answer is because the way a Jew was created is, he's always meant to feel disappointed that he can't learn. Got to do many other things in life. And that disappointment, and that concern, and that she'ifa to return to learn, that's enough of a connection to the mitzvah that you didn't lose the bracha. It's not true by sukkah, it's not true by lulav. A person wants to live a whole life in a sukkah, it's not a whole life in lulav. But a person wants to be connected to the Torah. And therefore, when one leaves, walks away from the Torah, the Vilna Gaon says, one should always feel Masai, Ashuv, L'Sefer. When will I get back to the Sefer? When will I have a chance to return? And that connection determines, Ad Kedekach, the bracha still stays alive, because you're connected. So that's the first thing I'm saying. We need to take advantage of the limited time we have for Avodas Hashem to do it seriously. It's incredible to me that people stand in shul and they're looking at iPods or what they're studying. Emails during, it's incredible. Chazar, many Rishonim hold that the repeat of the Shema Esrei is the main Shema Esrei. The Rambam Shita is Tefillah Tzibur is when the Shliach Tzibur says, not when you daven with 10 people. When the Shliach, you answer Amen to the bracha, it's more powerful than your own davening. And it's a Chilul Hashem. Looking at going to a shir and people are, I give a shir and people are studying under the table. Some said email. Making a joke, we make a joke of this. That's not called ruchnius. So that's the first thing we need to know. Second thing we need to know is the following. This is Rabbi Summers has always introduced Musa learning in the shul, takes it seriously. It's one of the few places in the world where I can mention this word without looking like a freak. So the person needs to take out time to evaluate. Sof kol sof, I'm going to get older. Whether I'm going to become 30 from 20, or 50 from 40, or 80 from 60, I'm going to get older. And believe it or not, one day I'm going to leave the world. When I'm going to leave the world, I'm going to turn around and look back and I'm going to say, so what did I do with my life? What did I do with my life? As everyone knows, no one's going to regret, and maybe they are out there, but no one's going to regret they missed an email, or they missed a chance to text somebody about the next pizza store. No regret that. You're going to regret the opportunities of chaping mitzvahs by Lazeh. But we're carried away in the meantime with the Narish Kachai. So the answer to that is Musa. The answer to that is taking time every day. Even 1 minute a day is better than nothing. To ask yourself just a question, what's going on? And each day try once, one time when you're about to do some stupidity that's inconsequential, not to do it. One time you wanted to browse the internet, don't do it. One time you want to send a text that's not essential, don't send it. One time, just don't do it. Once a day, shon a groise Zach. The huge thing, you're alive. You have sense of chushim, you have ruchnistik chushim. There's more important things to do. Try and say an extra kapitel Tehillim every day. Try and learn one mission a day you didn't do before. Not learn 20,000 things. Try and say to yourself, I try to add one Mishnah. I don't know how to learn Mishnah. Call up the phone lines, I don't know which they are, the phone lines have Mishnahs on. You can get a Mishnah on the phone. You can get a download of Mishnahs. You can listen to it in the car. Begin to develop a value for Chashivas for Ruchnis. Then we'll understand what it means Churban Beis HaMikdash. Churban Beis HaMikdash means we live in this cesspool. That's what Churban Beis HaMikdash. You live in a cesspool of people who lost the sense of what it means to be a person. Who have no sense. I'm not talking about tznius al pi halacha. I'm not discussing tznius al pi halacha. I'm talking about tznius vis-a-vis the animal. People who have any sense of modesty more than an animal. Maybe less than an animal. Have any sense people are billboards for tattoos. The only times they've got enough place to put the next tattoo. They walk around like clowns. It's a makom where people have lost the Tzelem Elokim. And there you lose your Yerushalayim. That's because the richuk of the Beis HaMikdash. There's no godliness in the world. Beis HaMikdash brings godliness in the world. Suppose every Yid has to have tsar. How can we live in the world without a Beis HaMikdash? That's the ultimate thing a person wants. To take away all these tremendous devaluing and unpleasant experiences and fill them with tov, fill them with good, fill them with beauty. That's the binyan Beis HaMikdash. So the Rebbe should help us that we should be zeicher, that we should be able to take something away from this Tisha B'Av. Everything is very, very serious. The whole world economy hangs on a string, on a thread. And if there's no real economy, there'll be, just be Armageddon. It'll just be, who knows what'll happen in the world. And every country is teetering around bankruptcy. And Eretz Yisrael in sakana atzuma shein kamayim. And every kid who grows up is in sakana shein kamayim. So what the Rebbe wants to see, that we really honestly care about it. That we care, there should be it bothers us. Ki choilas avani. And if we take that message from Tisha B'Av, the Mitzvah Hashem will be zeicher that this will be the last Tisha B'Av. Amen.
I'd like to thank Rabbi Gradon for the beautiful Divrei Chizuk. Also, I want to thank the Green family for sponsoring his shir, the Ilan Nishmas best father, Dr. Hirsch Ben Yaakov. Mincha will be at 1:45, and Rabbi Chapnik will be at 2:30.